So today we're going to be talking about writing winning offers with Lynette. We're going to be having a quick conversation with Scott Piper on how to do successful short sale negotiations. And then Ellen's going to share with us everything she learned on her trip to China. Well, maybe not everything, because we don't have enough time. She was there for a while, but she's going to share a lot of great data with us on the Chinese market and how those things are changing. And so the first thing I want to do is introduce our first guest. Miss Lynette Edwards has 12 years in real estate, closed 47 transactions in 2011, uses technology, uses professionalism, uses the internet, uses all of that robust skill set that she has to help her win time and time again in residential real estate. So Lynette, welcome. We're so glad you're here on the radio show with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
There are millions and millions of people listening, so don't be nervous.
Oh, now you're really making me nervous.
It's kind of
I told you I was nervous.
I know. Now you don't need to be. Now you don't need. It's just you and me. It's it. Just ignore the microphones in front of you.
You make it so easy.
It's totally no big deal. So let's dive in, because I really want the agents to get to learn from you and from your experience. So how's your business been affected by this buyer frenzy and compressed supply side and multiple offers and all this stuff? And it seemed like, I mean, I've been around residential real estate for 12 years, so, not forever, but this has been the fastest market transition, although they're like dog years, right? So sure. 12 years in residential real estate, I think that's like 84 in real life.
Feels like it.
Yeah. So it's shifted.
I have the gray hair to prove it.
Yeah, I have no hair, so you're beating me. It seems like it shifted faster than I've ever experienced. And so how have you adapted your business, and how you're doing business differently than you did even maybe 4 months ago?
It has changed so fast. I think all of us agents out there are feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the prices appreciating in many different areas.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the multiple offers.
Mm-hmm.
And where we were used to being able to negotiate on most of the houses we were writing on, now all of a sudden, just literally in the last couple months, we have to change our mentality really fast. It reminds me of 2005 in a way, with how competitive it is.
Right.
Right. You want more listings now, given how quickly they're selling. And for the buyers, it's quite the learning curve that they're having to adjust with, along with us agents, with realizing that we don't have that luxury of negotiating now.
Right.
Now we're looking at multiple offers. And so the way I've been adjusting is really working harder. Finessing my offers.
Tell me a little bit about that. And we're going to go into more detail on that. So maybe let's break that. You gave me a bunch already that I want to dig in on. So let's break that into two pieces. One way you said that you're approaching the business differently is to really have a heavy listing focus now. Why is that? Tell me how you're doing that. So why and how?
Why and how? Well, the why is because for listing properties, they're turning over faster. You don't have to do as much work, because when I'm working with buyers, you're spinning your wheels a little bit if you're not really dialed in or have buyers that are understanding the process and willing to compete when it comes to pricing.
Right.
And with my listings, I'm found, even if I feel like I'm pricing slightly higher, they're still selling.
Right.
You need them to show well.
Sure.
But it's an easier transaction from what I've been finding. So I'm getting out there and I'm announcing to my clients about the market. A lot of the clients that I've sold in the past, maybe they don't realize that the market's picked up a bit. So I'm sending them notices, showing the trends, telling them little stories. And for some of those sellers that are sitting there, homeowners that are sitting there, not sure if they should sell, maybe they don't realize that the market has appreciated. Maybe they can sell at a price point that they're happy with.
So there's some, what I'll call latent business in your database and sort of in your sphere of influence and in your macro market that's been sitting on the sidelines, maybe a seller who also hasn't caught up with the headlines and doesn't understand yet where the market is and might still think, maybe it would have been a short sale 6 months ago and now it won't.
Right.
Or buyers aren't out there and they aren't realizing that buyers are. So you're helping to re-educate your database, and you're being the news source for where the market is.
I mean, anytime I'm at a social event, people always ask me about the market. They always do, and I'm pretty candid with them. And a lot of them, I tell them if they're thinking about selling, I say, if you have to sell, or you're thinking about moving up, or you need to change, do it now, because I feel that there's this great frenzy, and part of what's driving this frenzy, as most of us know, is just we have all these buyers that want to capitalize on these lower interest rates and help buyers that are freaking out that they may have lost out on the market. I mean, just last week I had buyers call me saying, I have to get in, I'm going to miss out. I try to tell them, it's okay,
Yeah.
tranquilo.
Yeah.
Take it easy. Just wait a little bit longer.
Breathe.
Don't stress too much.
Right.
But the other way I'm trying to target listings is, I've been able to become involved with some investors that are out there flipping houses.
Yep.
So if you can target that and become involved with an investor, it's a lot more inventory that's coming your way to list. That's ready to go.
Shameless plug. Lynette didn't know this, but we're actually going to have one of the top investors in California on our show in a couple of weeks, maybe a month. And he tries to buy as many as 10 properties a month. He's going to be talking about.
Put me in touch with him, please.
Yeah, okay, I will. Yeah, that'll probably be our largest attended radio show in the history of ever. But he buys all over the state. We'll talk about what investors look for in real estate.
Are you listening to that? I am. This sounds great.
Make sure you tune in for that. So you talked about the buyer side. Now I want to shift gears a little to this. I mean, you talked about the seller side, the listing side. Now I want to shift gears and talk about the buyer side a little bit. We're going to go really granular in a few minutes on really how to position my offer better and some of those kinds of things. But you mentioned part of this re-education, which I think is so important. Tell me how you're helping buyers understand, or let me ask this first question first. Are buyers, all of them, getting that the market shifted, or are some of them coming in thinking it's still a buyer's market?
A lot of them are coming in thinking it's a buyer's market. So just last week, I had clients that I was helping out 6 months ago circle back and say, we're now ready to buy.
You and the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help them understand? Because I find that sometimes a lot of the agents I talk to are kind of burnt out, or they're getting tired from working with buyers because maybe they aren't setting the right expectations for them.
So I guess twofold. One would be immediately start educating them on the market. If they're new buyers or buyers that are coming back into the fold, I get them in my car right away, and because that's the best quality time I get with them are the first 2 hours, and I really just fill them in on all the scenarios I'm coming across, the multiple offers, how I'm getting them accepted, and I'll go into a lot more detail on that. I point out the houses that had multiple offers, and I start managing their expectations, and I talk very direct and strongly to them and matter of fact, and they're looking to you as the agent, and they're coming to you for advice and counsel. And if they're good clients, they'll listen and they'll take it to heart.
Right.
And then along with that, after really educating them on the market, I enable them with great websites out there for them to track the inventory. And I tell them, look at all the inventory out there on the market.
Right.
You're going to see how fast they come and go. You're going to see how high they sell for. Buyer, it's really good to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
And quite honestly, buyer, we have to be extremely aggressive in this market now, and it takes a dual effort. So I need you out there tracking houses. You can see everything that us agents have access to nowadays.
Right.
I mean, you can see a house faster than I can see a house frequently.
Yeah. I mean,
and, my clients get OCD. Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No, it's okay.
They just track these listings. They see it faster than I do. The second it hits the market,
they're all over it. Yeah.
What they maybe don't realize is that they are learning about how quick the homes are selling, and in a way, it's a soft way of educating them as well.
So you let the market, and you just open the kimono, let them all the way, and encourage them to go all the way behind the scenes as far as speed and pace of market, and then you just let the market deliver the information for you. You just reinforce it.
Did you say open the kimono?
I did. Yeah, I was hoping that would slide under the radar, but now you have brought that back to light for millions and millions of listeners all over Mason-McDuffie land. Right, that's what I meant.
I do.
That's another version of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? Just be candid and open. So let's just let's pretend like I'm a buyer, and because I know agents hear this sometimes. How do you answer the question, Lynette, I'm super excited. I think now's the right time to buy. Interest rates are at all-time lows, but I don't really want to be in a competitive situation. I don't want one of these bidding wars. What do you say to that buyer?
Wow.
Yeah, good luck.
Silence. I tell them, I say, well, unfortunately, the market has changed, and it's changed quite fast. And I give them a couple examples of what's been selling in the area. And I tell them, there's always the chance to find a good deal. We just have to put in a lot of work into it, and it requires buyer, a lot of due diligence and hard work on your end, and realize that you're going to have to make compromises no matter what.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, and I've told this most recently to a buyer, I told them get over it, because quite honestly, it depends on the buyer and your relationship with them. You have to be very sensitive.
And their behavior profile, right? Some are really
comfortable
comfortable with a little more aggression on your part. Some, you got to be a little more paced in how you break the bad news. But sure.
Agents, and I'm learning this still, you have to be careful. You don't want to be spinning your wheels if it's never going to come together.
Right.
And I try to qualify my buyers through the questions and advising and how they reciprocate to that and how they take the first offer that we write. How much do they really listen to me? If they're trying to do it all themselves and relying on their parents for all the advice and telling me through their parents how to write an offer, then maybe, unfortunately, it's probably not the best situation for me right now as an agent. Granted, when I was brand new and didn't have any leads, I took it on as a learning opportunity. But
no, I'm with you.
You don't want to spin your wheels in this business. It's hard enough right now with how difficult it is.
I think there are 3 criteria to a client. It's motivated, realistic, and loyal. And if they aren't realistic, you have this perception that you're costing yourself a commission, but you aren't. Because until they get realistic, and if that's going to take 2 years, you're better off to let them go and then try to reconnect with them in 2 years when they are realistic. So if they aren't motivated, they aren't realistic, and they are not loyal, you didn't lose a client. You never had a client.
Right.
Right. We got a question from Liz who asks, you mentioned websites. You direct them to certain websites.
Right.
What websites do you send your buyers to?
Well,
just the top couple that pop into your head.
Oh, sure. Well, there are multiple websites that people go to that track, and we all know it, Zillow, Trulia. And there are other online sources out there where they can capture the listings that are on the market. So I send them straight to what my own website tracks as listings, so they can download and they can receive auto messages the day that they come on the market.
Right.
So through Better Homes and Gardens, through WedTalk, you can sign people up with that.
Yep.
But then I also send them also to Redfin as well, or Zip Realty, because they can track a lot of the houses that way. And the reality is that buyers are going to come across that anyway. So if you provide that to them up front, it makes you look good. And then it avoids, and you have a little bit more control over the buyer, and they're going to be out there searching on the internet. You'd hate to lose them to someone else that grabs them off the internet. So if you provide them with the tools that they're going to come across and tell them a little snippet about each of them, it helps. So
if you do what you're supposed to do and have a real, you're the one who's eyeball to eyeball with the client. So if you do what you're supposed to do, you won't, quote, lose them, unquote, to this sort of virtual environment.
Right.
So long as you're providing service, educating, helping them move through the process.
Right.
Good. Cool. Great. So let's dive a little deeper now. So now we're going to kind of go into some real tactical stuff, and I know we'll go into more later. But you mentioned investors. I'm seeing more investor purchasing power. There's literally millions, if not billions, of dollars that have been sitting on the sideline trying to figure out how to get into residential real estate. We're going to talk a little later in the show today to Ellen about some of the money that's coming from China and other places. So there's all this money that's moving towards residential real estate, and that means that your buyer of their primary residence is competing at a level that's very rare with investors. And you've got these all cash.
It's not rare anymore.
Yeah, I know, right? But it hasn't happened in a long time.
Right.
So how do you, when you're working with a buyer, how do you compete in this all cash, multiple offer environment? Tell me a little bit about how you compete in that kind of scenario.
And so we are seeing all cash on the majority of the multiple offer situations I'm competing against. There's one all cash bidder in there in the fray. And how I'm advising my clients to counsel them to get an all-cash offer accepted is that we pull out all the stops we possibly can. And the reality is that it is hard to compete up against all-cash because they can close escrow so fast.
Right.
But a lot of the all-cash offers, from what I've been seeing, because I'm on the listing side too, so I see the all-cash offers, the quality is very poor. The quality, the way they write the offer, the professionalism, the way it's written. And then oftentimes the mentality is that all cash bidders are looking for a deal and they're trying to get it discounted. So for competing against an all cash offer, and I'll go into other details as to how you get your multiple offers accepted, is I explain, first of all, I understand who my competition is. So I ask the agent up front, is anyone else writing an all-cash offer? And if they tell me, that tells me something. And then I ask them, who's the agent? Do you know the agent? And usually that tells me a little bit more as well. So if you're, once you go into writing the offer and you understand there's an all-cash offer on the table, I prepare my clients to start shortening their contingencies. There's 3 contingencies: the loan, the appraisal, inspections. The shorter our time frame, the stronger we are to the seller. An all-cash bidder essentially is no loan, no appraisal contingency.
Right.
So with my buyers, with advising them on the pros and cons, if they do have greater than 20% down, or there's a guarantee from the lender that no problem, they can get a loan accepted, then lately I have been doing no loan or no appraisal contingency with the understanding that there's a chance that it may not appraise to value, given that prices have been adjusting, and my clients have to be okay with that.
And what do you do with your client when that happens? Do they come in with a check, or do you cancel when they lose a deposit, or what's?
Well, if there's, they'd have to come in with a check, and they have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And, you're pretty calculated, and you have to be very careful as an agent with how you advise that.
Yep.
And so by removing your loan and appraisal contingency, essentially you're on the same playing field as an all-cash. Now, you still have your contingencies for your inspections, that their overall umbrella contingency that gives you another out. So that's one way. Second is
let me ask you a question on that. What's the, so on the inspection contingency, let's pretend I was a super motivated buyer. What's the shortest you feel comfortable that we could do an inspection contingency time period in
3 days.
3 days.
3 days, and I line up my inspectors in advance, and I call them, and I pull out at every stop I can. And the reality is, if that 3rd day falls on a weekend, then we get a couple more days. And if you need more time, you can always ask for more time. You don't want to go with that mentality, but I'm doing 3 days. I'm doing 3 to 5 days, and I'm preparing my clients for that as well up front.
So, because I know that there are some, we have agents all over, right? And so someone heard that and they're totally like doing somersaults and kind of freaking out. So let's dig in on that a little bit, because I know that when I was representing buyers in a really hot market, I used a similar approach. But so you're like pre-scheduling your home inspection.
I actually am. I have inspectors scheduled for next week with anticipation that I'll be writing offers. And
if you see that the roof looks a little edgy,
if a buyer just isn't comfortable with 3 days, then we extend that time frame. Or if I'm not able to line up all my inspectors up front, I extend it. But I also tell my clients, look, the reality is that most likely someone's going to be higher than you price point wise for all cash. Or even doing 3 days, or even no inspection contingencies, because I'm seeing that right now. And that's a scary thing.
It is.
People are now doing pre-inspections on places come in with no inspection contingency. So any extra thing you can do to make you stand out compared to your competition minus price really does help. So it's hard as an agent to stomach doing that the first time, but once you do it once and you can crank it out and you line people up in advance and you have your systems in place, you'll be a lot easier to do it the next couple times after that.
And I'd add one piece to that, and I agree with you completely. If you've historically done 17 days and left it at the default in the contract, don't start writing 3 days today. Wind your way back. Make some phone calls, have some meetings with your inspectors and the rest of your service providers and vendors. Ask them what their fastest turnaround time is. Start to develop these relationships so that you can go from 17 days to 10, right? And then you can go from 10 to 8 and 8 to 5, and don't try to run the 4-minute mile when you haven't gone for a run in 10 years, right? So ease your way into shortening your comfort level with the contingency period, and it's an interesting tightrope that you have to walk, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to do what the buyer feels comfortable with. But we also have to be as aggressive as we can, because the shorter the inspection contingency, the better the offer.
So true. But I guess to get back to also tips on how I get offers accepted against cash is I'm providing proof of funds up front to the listing agent. The more I try to beef up my offer as much as possible and wow and dazzle the agent. So if I show proof of funds, I show even their FICO scores if they have strong FICO scores. And I even have the lender call the listing agent directly. And this is a key secret that most agents don't do. have your lender call the listing agent directly. Because it's one thing for me to show the pre-approval letter and the proof of funds and say, this is a great lender, I love him, he's excellent. It's another for that listing agent to hear directly from the lender themselves and hear how confident the lender is about the deal. The listing agent would appreciate that, and I've had many deals accepted simply because of that one little trick.
Great.
And when you're in multiple offers, in your time frames, if you advise your clients, advise them now, get all your support from the lender. The more upfront you do, the faster our turnaround time will be once we're in contract.
Yeah.
I really work with lenders that can do fast turnaround times.
What's that mean?
Extremely important. 21 days to close escrow.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, you can even go even shorter than that if you get a full direct DU approval. And that will also impress And it's not always about price when it comes to getting your offer accepted. Sellers are so emotionally tied to their house that if you're also showing them that there's a real body, not just an investor that's going to be buying the house, and
the human being behind it,
and you really deliver that in a sensitive situation to the seller, whether or not they're doing a short sale, which is sensitive,
sure,
or also just a regular sale. So I really try to sell my buyers in the best light possible to the sellers. Have them write a letter to the sellers. I call them love letters. And those, cash does have value.
Sure.
About, I would say, it depends on who the seller is and how much they value it. But as long as you're within the all-cash buyer's price range or $10,000 higher, and you do additional tricks, as I sort of mentioned,
sure,
almost always I get it.
Great. Awesome. A couple questions. One is buyer-broker agreements, so signed buyer-broker agreements. This comes from Pam. Do you use a buyer-broker agreement with your buyers? Do you have them sign anything that says we're going to work together exclusively?
Every agent handles this differently, and for me, I do not.
Okay.
And I tell them the importance up front. I expect that you're not also sourcing me out to other agents because I'm going to be busting my butt for you, and a lot of hours go into this. And I feel that I don't want my clients to feel like they're pigeonholed with me. I want them to be happy with my customer service, and if they're not happy with my customer service, then it's my fault. I don't want them to feel like they're strong-armed.
Sure.
But that's my take on it.
We should probably do a future radio show on buyer-broker agreement and get two different guests with differing opinions on it.
Yeah.
There's no right way to do real estate. I think when I was selling, I never used a buyer-broker agreement. Of course, when I was selling, it didn't exist, or was there, but it wasn't anywhere near the common practice that it is now. I do think it's an interesting concept. What it does for us is that if you are going to, quote, break up with me, unquote, we at least have to have a conversation. And it sounds like you do that just through having very transparent communication with your buyers and say, I only work with clients who work exclusively with me. And it's okay if you want to work with someone else. I just ask that you let me know.
Right.
And the piece of paper makes that happen. So we'll probably do that in a future radio show where we'll have two sides of the coin come and talk about it. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. Let's keep diving in here on getting a little more tactical. You mentioned shortening contingencies. You mentioned love letters. Anything else that you would add as far as making your offer more competitive?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I feel that a lot of work goes into it, but over time I've developed systems so it's a lot more turnkey because inevitably when you have to write an offer, it's the worst possible time for your client, it's the worst possible time for you.
Right.
They're looking at offers tomorrow, so how are you going to get all these steps and get everything lined up? So, having systems in place really helps.
Yeah.
I call it the 5 strategies. You want me to go into that? 5 strategies?
We're going to get there in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get there in just a minute. I think, and I'm going to paraphrase what I heard you say, is, it's a little, maybe looking at each time you present offers almost like a job interview, right?
It's true.
And anytime you're going on a job interview, you should be researching the company, finding out what they're into, finding out their product mix, tweaking your resume to match as much as humanly. If it's a tech job, then you're going to go more tech heavy with your job experience and your descriptions. If it's not a tech, you know what I mean?
That was a great analogy. I wish I came up with that.
Well, you
perfect.
did. You actually passed that over to me on a note. So if we think of these offer writing scenarios not as, hey, I'm just writing one more offer on Tuesday evening, but as a job interview, and how can I take this offer, whatever the strengths and weaknesses are of the offer, just like our resume. No one's resume is perfect. But how can I take the fact that I bounced around a lot and make that mean I have a diverse skill set, right? So how can I take the strengths and weaknesses of each offer and highlight and shine those? It's really what I heard you say. And it's a constant process of looking at, if they got great credit scores, I'm going to show credit scores. If they don't have great credit scores, I'm not going to show it. If they have a slam dunk pre-approval and are DU underwriting, I might even get a copy of the DU underwriting print screen from my lender and submit that with my offer. But you're always trying to figure out every time you write an offer to maximize your percentage of you winning. 100%. That's awesome. That's great. Now, communication and follow-up, because you mentioned that you called the agents, which is sort of, I think it's awesome. And something in the last market cycle with REO, we moved away from calling agents, and some of that was because we rarely got a call back. But we moved away from calling an agent before we write an offer. Tell me a little bit about that process, and then tell me about how important communication, follow-up, follow-through, and all of those pieces are for you in helping you win.
Yeah, I really, from the get-go, I try to charm the agent, regardless of the agent and their personality, because we come across all different types.
Sure.
You never want to burn a bridge in this business, because you never know when you're going to come across that agent again.
It's a small business.
Really, it is. So from the very beginning, I'm actually calling the agent up front, telling them I have buyers that are interested. Because I've had deals accepted where the seller strictly went off of first come, first serve. Really? And some buyers are afraid, well, you don't want to show that you're too excited about a property. But if you're one of the first people in and you're communicating to the listing agent, you're hoping that they're going to remember you when you're reviewing the multiple offers in the end. And from the very beginning, I'm talking with them, trying to get an understanding of what is the seller looking for, what is their situation. I'm also charming them on my clients and how much they love the property, and flattering them on how well they've pulled the house together. And from the beginning, I stay in touch with the agent. I tell them, if you don't mind, I'm going to follow up with you again just before we look at offers. And then again, so there'll be a couple times I'll be touching base with you just to check in. And usually agents are okay with that. And if they're not happy with voicemails because they're too busy, I say, I'm going to send you emails or text messages. Are you okay with that? And getting an understanding of how many disclosure packages are out there and how many other agents are looking to write offers.
Let me just interrupt, because not every one of our markets does the disclosure package thing. So tell me what you mean by how many disclosure packages. I mean, we all do disclosures, but I know specifically in Berkeley and Oakland, Tell me a little bit about that disclosure package process.
So I work over in the Contra Costa Alameda County, and over in Alameda County, more frequently do you see agents providing the reports up front and the standard seller's disclosures up front. And
TDS, home inspection,
SPQ, termite report, and they package it all into a PDF or a link to download. And I usually ask how many of those out to other buyers.
There's no way.
And the thing behind that is, if 10 buyer packages go out, that's going to turn into some percent of the offer.
Yes, I used to think that the percent now it's really hard to tell how many become
kind of all over the map.
Offers. Correct.
Okay. John asked, present your offers in person?
100%.
Okay.
That's the best way that I can really shine. And most agents will do that. If I have to drive an hour out of the way to go present, really respect that, and especially if it's an agent that's been in the market for a really long time. It's more traditional real estate. And gosh, if I can get right in front of the sellers too and look them face to face and share my clients, it has been a cutting edge. And someone told me when I first got into the business, always present wherever possible, and that holds true. And I've even done a webcam presentation, believe it or not.
Wow.
I've actually set up, because I was over in Tahoe and the other sellers were over in Berkeley, and we did a little visual presentation. And even to hear your voice whenever you present to the agent really helps.
Okay, good. Anything else you'd want to add for us about sort of, again, that communication component and professionalism and how that helps you win? In part of communication, not only talking verbally, as I always follow up with something in writing. So
when I write my offer, I include a cover page. I call it the contract highlight page. And it talks about the contract highlight page. And what it does is it talks about the best parts of the contract, right? You don't want to highlight the negative parts of it. And that breaks it down into a summary. And then I go into all the reasons why the agent should consider working with us as the buyer. And I summarize as well, highlighting my experience and knowledge as an agent, because if I'm representing a buyer and that listing agent doesn't know me, then maybe I should talk to him a little bit about my experience. And so I found that to be effective.
Okay, good. Now is time for those top 5 tips for how to write winning offers that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
So why don't you run us through these one at a time? Just what are the top 5 tips that you've got?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about it, but so far, number 1, so I've broken it down simply into 5 consolidated things. Number 1 would be start managing your clients now, as I've mentioned. Get them in the car, educate them, let them know that the market has changed, show them the different websites out there that they can track inventory.
Transparency.
Transparency. Number 2 would be charming the agent, as you said, and we talked about, and the sellers as well, because I usually I always tell my clients, if possible, go to the Sunday open house too, because even though they've seen it and they know they like the property, I tell them to schmooze the listing agent. Put on the smile. Don't ask any difficult questions because you don't want to come across as if you're going to be a difficult buyer. Leave that to me as your agent. And hopefully they'll remember you, and when they go to present to the sellers, because the listing agent has a huge role in who the seller accepts the offer with. Hopefully they'll remember my buyers, and really sell yourself as on your knowledge and your efficiency with getting deals accepted. One buzzword that I use that a lot of listing agents like is communication. Look, listing agent, I believe in communication. The more communicative we are, the better, because escrows are so difficult nowadays. And a lot of times they really value that.
Well, and people, I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is still a people business, and people like working with people that they like. If they have a sense that you are going to be responsive, that you're going to laugh a little bit, you're going to have a little fun as you're moving through this transaction, real estate's better when you're working with people you like, right? And so be likable, right? Use that charm, your version of charm, whatever that means for you. And
my lender, on the last deal I got accepted, there were 18 offers on, it was over in the Martinez, Pleasant Hill border. My lender called and he said he got the listing agent to laugh. And the listing agent was, pretty dry, and the fact that we got her to laugh, I thought that helped. So with, charming the agent too is strategically I'm trying to find out which title company perhaps that they work with. Makes it smoother. They know the title rep. Also try to work with their lender where possible, if appropriate. And I've had deals accepted simply because of the lender. Frequently.
Okay. And then number 3 on your list is?
Do your homework, agents. Really. Seriously. Understand the comps, because the comparables of 6 months are not what they are today. What I usually do is I call the most recent pending sales and call those agents and find out to get an idea of how many offers were there, potentially how high did it sell, because the buyers that missed out on that house are going to be bidding on the one that my clients are bidding on. So it gives me an idea of sort of where the trends are. I even ask the agents, what were some of the buyers doing? Were some of them doing no contingencies? It really gives me a little bit of insight. So get your disclosures up front, the sooner the better, and really read through those in detail, and really talk to other agents how to write a clean offer, because I feel that as a listing agent, if I'm looking at multiple offers and one agent doesn't write it to per local standard and isn't very clean with writing the offer or makes a mistake, to me it begs the question that agent's inexperienced. So I think that it's important to do your homework as to understanding how to write a clean offer. And you'd be surprised, I talk about all these little tricks of the trade, but you'd be surprised how many agents just don't do that. They don't. And that's how you can set yourself apart from others, and hopefully in an effort of trying to get your deal accepted. When I'm calling on a listing agent, I usually try to ask open-ended questions to understand the competition, who's writing an offer. Hey, buyer, seller, by any chance, are you also writing an offer on this?
It's good to know, right?
Because that will really tell me what are my chances?
Yeah.
To a certain degree.
Right.
Is anyone else writing cash at this point in time?
It's a little detective work, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't ask anything, you'll get no information.
Right.
And you should ask questions until they stop answering, right?
Right.
Because it's all data that's going to, again, going back to that job interview analogy, the more you can know before you go into the interview, the better prepared you are to win on that.
You'd be surprised what listing agents will tell you.
They'll tell you a lot.
Oh, my gosh.
But they won't tell you anything if you don't ask, right?
It's right. In this business, it never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
It's all about how you ask it. Ask it with a smile versus ask it demanding or the wrong way, and that can hurt you.
Right. Okay, number 4.
Shorten your contingencies.
Yeah.
I know that's really, it's a gut wrench for the buyers and for us agents to do that, but that's the reality is right now I'm dealing with offers with no contingencies.
Right.
So how do I compete against that?
That's your competition. Yeah. So, and it is that tightrope that we talked about before. You got to tap dance with being aggressive, but as aggressive as the consumer feels comfortable. Right. How do you, now I'm totally going off your list here, but I think it's valuable. And we haven't prepped this at all, so feel free to say, I don't know. But how do you handle when a buyer, I've found an experience I have is buyers want you to pick the price they're going to write at.
Right.
How do you do price in a multiple offer situation and determining what offer price? How do you work with your buyers on that?
It's multi-pronged. First of all, we also need to understand how much your buyers really can't afford, because if their max is the actual price that they're looking at and we know it's going to sell over asking, then maybe it's not the best house for them to be looking at.
Do you normally show buyers at their top, or do you start with some
I show all ranges, but I do prepare them that, look, there's a chance if there's X disclosure packages out or multiple offers, then maybe this is one to chalk up as a learning experience.
Okay.
But for understanding pricing, there's no real true algorithm aside from getting in the trenches.
Yeah.
So I look up the pending sales, I look up the comps, and I call the pending sales. That tells me a lot as to what the next sales price is going to be.
Right.
So, and try to get a hold of those agents. I get out on the street and I ask agents what they're doing.
Yep.
And a lot of it comes down to part gut, part knowledge, part understanding. How many offers are on the table. I really hold off until the 11th hour with submitting my offer, and I tell the listing agent, I'm going to contact you essentially at 4 p.m. when you're looking at offers.
Right.
Because yesterday she told me there were 3 offers.
Now there's 8.
Today there's 15.
Right.
And that's what happened over
or
Martinez. 1. So the way I prep my clients is I look, there's 2 prices really that I'm probably going to advise you on. What is what I think what the true value is, the market value, and what I think the other is what it's going to take to get your deal accepted. In some cases with these multiple offers, homes are selling over what I think the comps are.
Right.
And so how can you advise your client to come that much more over?
Sure.
And then in other situations, maybe it's a home that's been poorly marketed or is a distressed sale or a short sale, and we can get it far below.
Get a little opportunistic.
Yeah.
One dialogue that I used to have, and then we'll get to your number 5.
Yeah.
But one dialogue that I used to have, just because a lot of times it's a little like you're boxing smoke, right? It's so ethereal. It's so like, I don't know, there's 13 offers, and how high is high enough, but I don't want to overpay. Yeah. And the dialogue that I used to have with buyers is, at what number are you comfortable losing the house? Because then we at least set the high range. We want to get as far below that as possible, but at least put some parameters around it. And Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, there's 18 offers.
Right.
So at what number are you comfortable losing? And if that number is asking price, then, don't pack. You're probably not going to get it. Don't order the U-Haul yet.
Right.
But it helps to at least give some parameters, and they're the ones creating it instead of with guidance and feedback from you, and you're showing them the comps and you're giving them all the information, but having them set the high end for themselves. And
that's exactly what I do tell them. Is, I do give them the range of where I think it's going to sell. And I prepare them for the higher range, if not higher, and I tell them, look, buyers, you need to feel comfortable with this, so you guys need to go home and discuss what it's worth to you.
Yeah, perfect. Right.
And then they're also on the same page then at that point, and they're not feeling like they're being pushed into a price. Because it's scary, and once they get their offer accepted, they go into, oh crap mode, what did I get myself into? Everybody does that. I did it myself when I purchased my house. So I feel that
And it doesn't matter what price you pay.
Yeah.
You still go, holy crap, what did I just do?
And the reality is you don't want your buyers to get cold feet because that's one of the scripting points I tell my listing agents is, look, I prepare my clients so much up front that they know what they're getting themselves into. They're not going to get cold feet.
One quick question from the audience, and I think I know the answer, but in those calls, you're checking, because normally we think better offer is shorter close, but sometimes seller might want a longer close for a finished school year or whatever. You check with the seller on their timeline. Obviously, Jackie asks that.
Lately I've been adding if it seems like the seller, they're still there, they have tons of stuff in the garage, or their kids are in school. I ask the listing agent, might they want a rent back?
Right.
I mean, sellers always want a shorter close, and the listing agent because they're motivated for their commission, quite honestly. But and they get their money up front. But what I usually try to do is do 21-day close of escrow with the option
of a rent back
for the seller to rent back free of charge, or at certain cost. And I've had deals accepted simply because of that clause inserted in there.
Yep. Great. And then your number 5.
Yes. Beef up your offer.
Yep.
So I really, talk about, people a lot of times, sometimes you hate to judge a book by its cover.
Sure.
But with writing offers, I really try to make our offer shine with the overall, what I've been talking about, charming the agent.
Right. All the components.
But then when I deliver the offer, if I'm doing it by presentation, it's hardbound and it looks awesome. Thanks to my marketing person, they pulled together a template, so it's easy for me to crank out multiples of these really fast.
Yep.
Part of beefing your offer is going the extra mile and making it, trying to send the message to the agent to make it as easy as possible for them, sending the delivery to them that we're going to be easy to work with when we're in escrow. The reality is, guys, once we're in escrow, this is what I tell my buyers, we can dot our I's, cross our T's. If we need to be difficult, we can be difficult.
Clean that up.
It's all about trying to get your deal accepted. So with beefing up our offer, I always sign all of the disclosures, not just the cover page. Let's sign all of them, because through DocuSign now, I don't print it off. That part I just print off the cover page. But through DocuSign, it's easy to do. I always include a contracts highlights page that highlights the pros of the offer, the reasons why they should accept us.
Do you have I'm sorry to interrupt, do you have a PDF of that you could send us and we push out to the attendees? Maybe we'll clean up, we'll black out people's names and that kind of stuff. But
I do have a PDF of that.
Yeah. Can I have that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Only because you asked.
Right. That's right. That's right. We're modeling the behavior we're teaching. We're good. Perfect.
And I took that, what I created, I saw what other agents have done, and I spun it and rewrote it and catered it to my own.
Made it your voice.
So I feel that that's what I've done throughout most of my business, is understanding how the best did it, and I take that, website development, and not take it and copy it, but really try to make it your own and make it even better.
Yeah, make that be the light, but it all shines through your lens.
Yeah. I always have a letter to the sellers. The buyers, I usually try to include photos. Some people disagree with that, but I include photos, a little, few different photos there that shows a picture of the dog, shows a picture of the kid. I recently just took a picture of my clients in the house that we were writing the offer on, showing the kid playing in the playroom. I know it's cheesy, but I tell my buyers, throw on the cheese. And talk about who you are, what you do, and why you like the property. And as an agent, you shouldn't be the one writing this letter. It needs to be candid and straight from your clients. And you can show them examples of what's been done. And then I just have my buyers just send me an email real quick with their little note, and then I format it and include the photos so the buyers don't have to stress too much about writing
together the perfect letter,
But I can't tell you how many times I've had deals accepted simply because there was a common bond. UC Berkeley.
At a minimum,
their grandfather was an artist. My client was an artist. I got a deal accepted $50,000 less because of that.
At a minimum, it gets you a better opportunity for a counter, right?
It does, because it shows you've done one extra thing. Most likely, your competition hasn't pulled together as complete of a package and shows as well, and so. And
if there's that connection, where maybe there's another that's $80,000 higher, but they both went to Berkeley, then let's at least counter both of them. Let's clean up counter on the one, and let's see if we can get the Berkeley grad in the house.
My goal is to be within the top 3 from where I think price point's going to be, and then almost always I get that counter or I get it accepted outright. Knock on wood, where's the wood?
Yeah, there's wood.
But I feel like, I look at all these buyers, agents that write offers when we're looking at multiple offers, and I'm always surprised with how they're not as complete.
Yeah.
So going that extra mile does go a while.
Treat it like a job interview. Yeah. Lynette, thank you so much for coming out to the studio today.
Yeah.
You did an awesome job sharing your knowledge and wisdom and experience with everyone, so we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good luck, agents.
Yeah, sell a house today. Sell a house today. Our next guest that we have for today's show is Mr. Scott Piper, the very talented leader of MRA Short Sales Solutions. Scott, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. So short sales obviously is a big market segment, and I get a lot of questions when I'm out in the field chatting with managers and agents. I get a lot of questions about just, what are some ways that I can make successful negotiations work. I usually answer that one way really fast and really easy, and that quite candidly is to call you and don't negotiate it so they don't have to worry about it, and then go find another buyer or seller, because it's a low dollar productive activity for them to be on the phone for hours and hours with the negotiator. But that being said, for the agents that like to experience pain a little bit before they experience pleasure, what are a couple of tips that you would give them on how to negotiate successfully on a short sale?
Well, sure, Keith. The first thing is that you need to qualify the seller. Lynette talked a lot about how to get your buyer in the door and make them the most presentable person in the transaction, but you need to make sure that you have a qualified seller in this transaction.
How do you make sure of that?
One, they need to be motivated.
Yeah.
They need to be motivated to do something, and sometimes it's hard to get a short seller motivated because there's no money coming out of the transaction. They have huge things going on in their life that the liquidation of this property is just almost like a minor thing to them. So you need to make sure that they are on board and they're ready to go the distance with you.
Okay, good. And then you also talk about qualifying the buyer. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Qualifying the buyer, like Lynette talked about, is hugely important. There's a lot of buyers out there. You're going to get multiple offers. In this marketplace, you can really be specific and choosy on which buyer you're going to take. The thing to really remember in a short sale is more importantly than a real estate transaction that's happening, we are eliminating debt.
Yeah.
And so if the transaction is complicated, there's a first and there's a second and there's an IRS lien and there's HOA dues. And you may need a very specific buyer who's going to be able to stand up and say.
You mean a patient one?
Patient. Maybe they've got extra cash to pay off junior lien holders. You really need to do your homework on the transaction and then select the right buyer for that.
All right. And then again, for the one that just want to bang their head against the rocks rather than let you and your team bang their head against the rocks, tell me a little bit about how important communication is into the process.
Well, Keith, communication is key in short sales because short sales are far from short.
Yeah, they should be called long sales. You are right.
And the problem is you could set an expectation with a buyer that this transaction is going to take 90 days to get approved. And I kid you not, by day 59,
they're burnt.
They are. They're out looking at other properties. They're calling their agent, what's going on. And as a listing agent or a short sale facilitator, if you don't have everyone in the loop as to what's going on, where are we? Has the BPO been done? Where are we in the transaction? Has it been assigned to a negotiator? That clear communication needs to be set ongoing to keep people engaged.
If people don't know where they are in the process, they assume they're at the beginning.
They're right. They assume nothing's going on. Well, I haven't heard from anybody in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. Nothing must be going on. I'm going to go out and look for another house to buy because this deal's not coming together.
Right. Okay. Well, Scott, thanks so much for giving us just a couple of quick tips on how to negotiate better. I just want to reinforce, if you can't tell already, if you're negotiating these on your own, you're crazy, because there are better uses of your time to go out and attract more buyers and sellers so that you can do more transactional volume. The time value of money, to me, dictates very easily and quickly that you should use a short sale negotiator, whether it's Scott or anyone else, but use a short sale negotiator In fact, just use Scott. That's easier. But
keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Scott, again, thanks so much for your time.
Keith, thanks so much.
Awesome. So now we have our diplomat for Better Homes and Gardens, Mason-McDuffie here. She is a world traveler, an amazing real estate agent, and most importantly, just an awesome person. Ellen, thanks so much for being here today and sharing some time.
Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So you just got back from almost like a mission trip to China to learn more about the real estate market and the comparisons and integration between their market and ours. I mentioned earlier with Lynette that there are literally millions, if not billions of dollars sitting on the sideline, all trying to attract and come towards residential real estate because people believe this is a once-in-a-generation time to buy. And a lot of those dollars are coming from China.
Yes, a lot of money is coming from China, and it shows in a recent report that the top 5 foreign investors from other countries buying U.S. real estate properties. Number 1 is people from Canada. Number 2 is people from China.
Right.
And people in China, they have made a lot of money in the last 15, 20 years since the door was open for international trade. And so they have established a lot of wealth. And as a general cultural practice is that people or parents who always want better future for the children. And one of the better future that they can provide for the children is to send the children to other countries to have a better education and then buy houses, change the quality of life. And with my experience in China in a couple of weeks ago for a 10-day 3-city or 4-city mission, that I could see why people want to invest in the United States, especially in California, just because of the air quality is just priceless.
Oh, okay. So air quality, it's interesting. That wouldn't be something that you would normally think of, but air quality is a big part of the reason that people are picking California, and this marketplace is where they want to deploy capital from China.
It's one of the many important reasons why they want to put the money in America in general. There are a few reasons. The first reason is that everybody knows that America real estate is on sale. Everything is so below value as compared to several years ago when the home prices were so high, and now in some areas home prices are like half the price of 5-6 years ago, and people see the opportunity to invest in American real estate right now. And the other thing is when we talk about international market, we also will have to pay attention to the exchange rates. And because of the exchange rate advantage, it's very advantageous for foreign people to invest in the United States in general. And combining the two with a low interest rate for some foreign investors, if they can get a loan, the interest rates are phenomenal.
Now, Ellen, as our director of diversity, if I want to get a little better at working with some clients who may be coming from China, what are some tips that you can give me on how I can work a little more better or more efficiently with buyers who are coming over?
I think first of all, we need a better exposure of ourselves in the market where we can reach our clients. If you want to work with Chinese clients, I think you need to get yourself in that community in order to get yourself known, because otherwise people will just not come because somebody is selling real estate. And what I also see here is that in the Chinese community or foreign investors from China, they seem to just get a hold of people they know in this market. And I think there's actually a phenomenon or a problem situation, like Lynette had mentioned earlier, is that there are a lot of all-cash offers that are poorly written. Because these are the all-cash buyers that they just got a hold of the realtor broker who happen to speak their own language, but they are not properly trained. But we need to get the message out there that we are professionally trained people, but we also speak your language. And we understand your culture, and we understand what's important to you and your children.
Wow, that's awesome. What else did you learn on your trip that would translate for an agent that's here doing the transactional volume?
For agents here doing the transactional volume, I think the agent still needs to make themselves more visible in the Chinese community.
How can an agent do that?
Well, there's an organization called Asian Real Estate Association of America. Actually, that is the organization that put on the China-U.S. Real Estate Summit that I attended. It's a very powerful organization. But with them, they will have seminars and events in the Asian community, and that will provide opportunities for people who want to work in the Chinese community. That's one thing. And the other thing is that for people who want to work in the Chinese community, I think they need to be more aware of what's going on, say, in activities in Chinatown, because people don't just visit a real estate office, but if they make themselves available at street fairs and any cultural festivals and things like that, maybe they have the opportunity to have a booth or trade fairs. Chinese Chamber of Commerces, they're all over in different cities in the Bay Area.
And someone asks, Alan, do you work with just Chinese, or is it Asian, Philippines, really anywhere?
I work with all kinds of clients. My main market is in Walnut Creek. Walnut Creek, the Asian population, despite the increase in Asian population, we still only have 12.3% in Walnut Creek. So my market is really diverse. I don't just work with Chinese or Asian clients, and I also have non-Asian clients as well, just because of the market I'm in.
Okay. And so, again, Alan, as the Director of Diversity, you're in our Walnut Creek office successfully helping buyers and sellers transact residential real estate. If the agents who are listening want to reach out to you to learn more about this process or to get help from you, how would they get a hold of you?
They can give me a call. It's
okay.
very easy.
All right.
And my phone number, do you want me to tell
you
my
sure,
phone
go
number?
Ahead, tell
okay, it's 925-890-4276.
So that's 925?
890-4276.
Or they could email you, right?
They can email me.
And that's ellen.osmundson, OSMONDSON.
OSMUNDSON.
Got it. And it's also right there at the top of the page on the screen. For those of you who are looking at it, there's the correct spelling. So it would be ellen.osmundson@bhghome.com. You're there as a resource to help them work with all of their diversity clients, regardless of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yes. And I think in a more organized way of learning about working with Asian clients, I think we need to, and we are planning to roll out training programs. So just please stay tuned about those training programs and events and be a part of it.
And they don't have to wait for that. They could reach out to you directly and get some help right now. But there is a lot of training that's coming, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we've done you've done a tremendous amount of work on that. I'm really excited for having future updates on the radio show about the diversity training and how that will be rolling out. So Ellen, as our Director of Diversity, thank you so much for being on the radio show this morning. We really appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right. I want to thank our other guest, Scott Piper with MRA Short Sales Solutions, and the talented Lynette Edwards from our Piedmont Highland Partners office. We're so happy to have all of our guests here today sharing their knowledge. Again, give us your feedback because we want to continue to bring you topics and information that are meaningful to you that will make you better at doing this craft that we call residential real estate. Stay tuned next week. We've got a lot of great information coming on future shows. And small shameless plug, if you are looking to get better at writing winning listings, working better with your listings, I'm going to be teaching the winning listings and working with sellers in the Go training in our Walnut Creek Riviera office on Wednesday morning from 9:30 to 12. So I'll be doing the listing portion on Wednesday morning at the Riviera office for the Go training. If you just let that office know if you haven't already signed up and you want to attend, we'll be really dissecting how to win in the listing consultation. So thank you all so much out there, and make it a great week.